Off you go, Allan.
Okay, guys. So, apologies for being a wee bit late. Hectic up this end of the country at the moment, but we're here now. Right, you were asking, or a few guys have been asking about the technique where you can tie in deer hair as the hackle for the fly. Okay, so I've just popped in it's a size 10 standard dry SLD2 from Partridge. There's various ways you can actually do this, and what I actually I've played about with quite a few of them. And what I'm going to show you is how I've refined it down to how I like to do it best. Okay, it's not the only way. It's just the way I like to do it. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pick. We'll say a standard wet fly, and we'll pick for this instance here. We'll pick a Zulu. All right. So I just need some black thread. Kick this off. So basically, it's just going to be a Zulu. It's just going to be red tail, black body, black hackle, and then I'm going to finish it off with roe deer for the hackle at the head. Okay. So we'll just catch our thread into the back of the eye. Nothing fancy here. It's a simple, straightforward palmer pattern. Cut off the tag end. Don't need that. And we'll get ourselves some glow bright number 4. Okay, if you can see that. There we are. So glow bright floss number 4, fluorescent. Perfect for lock style wets. We just take off a length, say about maybe 6 inches off the spool, and then what I'm going to do is I'm trying to do this so that you can see it. I'm going to double it up, fold it, so double it again. So that's I folded it in half, folded that in half again, and then once again folded in half. So I'm now left with a nice, not too heavy tail. I'll take a thread down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch this in the center of the floss, or thereabout, yeah? Just a loose turn. So you can see that I've got 2 sets of loops, if you like. I'm just going to even that up. What I'm going to do now is just pull both loops back over the back of the hook, lock that in place, and take my thread down to just at the start of the bend, which is where I want the tail to start from. Okay, and then I grip it all together and come in. The tail's, I mean, there's no set length for a tail on a wet fly, but this particular type of fly. So what we'll do is we'll just come back 2 or 3 millimeters past the bend of the hook and single cut, and you should be left with a nice straight cut on the tail. Bring your thread back forward. Just make sure you've got all that locked in. Take the thread up and down, and I'll do it again, back up. And the reason for that, you notice that the last 2 runs of the thread there didn't go across the top of that little bit of the tag end of the thread there. So there was a bump in the body actually. Now you can tie your tail in from just behind the eye, and then you've got an even body all the way down. But if you're doing that, guys, you're going to use a lot of floss for no reason. Yeah. So that's the way I do it. So tie it in at the end, and then just make up that little bump there, just even the thread off, so you've got a nice level base to tie on. The original Zulu would have been oval tinsel, silver oval tinsel. If you're a true traditionalist, well, you would have had red wool in the tail as well. Yeah, I'm not that true a traditionalist, I have to say. So I've substituted the tinsel for a 0.2mm silver wire. Oval tinsel can be an awkward material to tie with, and you've got to remember that when a lot of these flies, the Zulu for example, when these flies first came out, and they were first shown to the world, these guys were timing the materials they had at hand. So they didn't have silver wire, and they obviously didn't have fluorescent floss tails, because if they did, then clearly they'd have used it. The other thing they didn't have was sparkly dubbing like this. Yeah. So this is actually Vineyard Black Peacock dub. And it gives a lovely deep olive black natural sheen to the fly. Okay. So far, I've been telling you I'm tying a Zulu. The only thing that I've got of the original tying must be the same colour of thread. So what I've done is I formed a dubbing rope, okay, and then just touch and turns, bring that forward and dub on the body. Catch your wee bit of Velcro, and then just lift out some of those fibres, just to roughen that body up a bit. Yeah. Now, just need to pick myself a nice cock hackle, palm it down the fly, and you want to set the bar length of your cock hackle about the same width as the gape of the hook, okay? Or slightly more, depends on how bushy you want the fly to be. This one's maybe just a slightly too small. I think another one. There we go. Perfect. So you can see there, when I put that in, from the centre of the hook down, the bars are just right on the hook gape size. Okay. That's a saddle cock. Yeah, you've got dozens of flies out of this one. Okay, so we've just caught the hackle on just the back of the eye. Clear off the stem, just keep yourself nice and tidy. Tighten up set up my glasses properly, I can see what I'm doing. If it comes off, don't panic. Captain Mannering. Catch that again. And clean off that section there. The other thing to do is throw that all shitey scissors away, because it's clearly not sharp. So we're going to take a couple of turns at the head first. Yeah. And then open turns, even open turns all the way down. And we're going to palmer the hackle down the fly till we come to the tail. Catch in our wire. So if we lift the wire up and round like that, yeah. Now another reason I prefer to use wire as opposed to oval tinsel is, as you can see, it's not really catching the hackle fibres very much, so you don't get much in the way of trapped fibres. Yeah, you wiggle the wire and you wiggle your tinsel to just stop that from happening, but invariably it will do it. So using wire certainly helps that a good bit. And then I'm just going to come in with my open scissors, and there you go. So that's me palmered the body. So I've set the tail, dubbed in the body, caught in the rib, and I'll just run my palmer hackle down. All bog standard basic stuff, and all ready for the bit you're all wanting to see, which is using the deer hair as a hackle. So what I used to do, I might as well show you. So what I used to do was, you would take your what do you call these things? Grips, yeah. CDC grip, and then what you would do is you would try and catch in a bit of the deer hair. You see that okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Catching a bit of the deer hair like that, and then cut it off. The thing with that is that obviously your deer hair's not a level. The tips are not lined up. Another thing that happens is you end up invariably leaving some straggly bits behind, and it doesn't give you a nice clean cut off the skin of the deer. Yeah. See, you see there is I've got my cuts of deer here. I cut tight to the skin. Yeah. So that way, none of these tag ends will get in the way the next time you come to use it. So what I do now is just as though I'm going to be tying in, taking a bunch of deer here, so I'm going to be tying in a muddler head or a wing or anything. So I just cut off a bunch of deer here and stack it. Into the stacker, like so. Tap it down. And then just lift it out the stacker. Like this. And then what I do is flatten it with my fingers. Okay? Now you'll get a few casualties, guys. Don't worry about that. But if you flatten it out with your fingers like that, then catch it with your pliers. And then you've got a nice, as you see there, you've got a nice bunch of deer here set into the pliers with pretty much even tips. Yeah. Now, a big mistake, a common mistake that I made to begin with was I was actually trying to put in too much. Now, remember, if you were tying this in with a red game hackle at the head of the Zulu, you're going to have maybe 4 tons maximum at the head of the fly. When you're tying in this, remember this is a hackle you're doing, not a muddler head. So a lot of the times I felt I was putting in far too much, which is exactly what I've done here. So essentially, I would say I've got enough there to do 2 flies, so I'm just going to lift some of that deer here away. I can reuse that. The next thing I'm going to do is make sure that they're up close to the ends of my grips, like so, and then come in and then just check the length that you've got, pretty much just from about the end, your edge of your pliers, okay? You see that? So you're just setting the length, so you're wanting it just slightly longer than the hackle you've done. Exactly the same as you would do with a standard head hackle on a Palmer's fly. So the next thing, I'm just going to trim away the tag ends, take the waste out of here. So I've now prepared the hackle, like so, okay? Take my dubbing needle now. Come in, flatten your thread. Dubbing needle in, split the thread. And so you were going to tie in, say, a CDC hackle or something. Yeah. Now, I like to use this, the dubbing wax, the soft dubbing wax here. Run it onto this section of the thread. And then come in with your prepared ends. I just actually dropped that there. Got it again. I have done this before, honestly. Come in, catch it there. Come up with your grips. Come in, catch that, like so. Just pull your thread tight and then take your grips away. Now, here's a secret. What you want to do now, you don't want all these tag ends getting caught up in the hackle because it makes it look untidy. So what you want to do is press them all up. So they're just almost, you're leaving a millimetre or so showing at the end. Looks a bit more than that, guys, but trust me, you'd be left with about a millimetre. Okay? So, yep. Or almost just dead flush. You don't want to push it right through because there's going to be nothing to grip it, yeah? Now, spinning clockwise. So just start to spin this off with the fingers, then you spin the bobbin holder, and then that'll form our hackle rope, if you like. Yeah. Tighten the hackle up. As you can see, it spin away nicely there. I like to give it a helping hand with the fingers, just by turning the thread itself. And when I know I've got that caught in tight, I know all these fibres are trapped into the thread, then we'll just make sure that that's tightened up. So there we go. We've got a nice hackle rope. Okay. And then, dead simple. As you do any hackle, you're just winding this on, coming forward each time, drawing it back until you get it all in place. Don't worry if you've got an odd tag end showing. And you just build up a head here. Any stubborn fibres, you can cut them off or break them out the way. So build the head up, guys. And I'm just going to throw in a quick finish here, just to lock that in place. Try and not catch the fibres I did there. And then what I like to do is, the fly's going to take a lot of punishment. Most of my flies, in fact almost all of them, I usually put in 2 hit finishes just to give it that belt and braces, and then we'll drop the varnish in just to finish that off. But you can see now, hope you can see there now, I've got a nice hackle fly using which is just rhodia, okay, just off the back. That's showing all right there? Yeah, you see that okay, Derek?
That's going to float real nice, that is.
It is, yeah. Now I'll still use floatant gink, Hunt's gel, stuff like that. I use that on my bob flies anyway, because I like them to bounce across the top or break through the surface of the film. And what I tend to do is I'll use, so this would be a bob fly, so this would be the top dropper. Sorry, I'm forgetting them. Bob fly is Scottish term, yeah. So this will be the top dropper because it's on a slightly lighter wire hook. The next fly down is going to be on probably a sprout, so a slightly heavier wire. And with the idea of being there, you're going to have one sitting that will come and bounce across the surface, and the second one I'll be getting pulled through. My tail fly is usually tied on a G3AL, so Wet Fly Supreme, so it's a much heavier weight wire gauge equivalent to Camazan B175. So the heavier wire, that just holds it under the surface and helps anchor it. If it's really windy, then even a small beaded hare's ear or a black rabbit fur nymph, something like that, just to help anchor it. Your tail fly will be, your fish will take the tail fly, obviously, when you're short lining. But essentially, it's your bob fly and your middle dropper, it's going to be the two that are really going to grab most of the attention. So that's it, guys. Nice and simple. As I said, remember the wee secret, just push the tag ends right up, almost flush with your thread before you tighten it up. And in that way, it gives you a nice, neat collar here without all the just little bits of tag ends showing through. There's nothing wrong with it, putting the tag ends through. It just looks a bit untidy. And there you are. How's that? Okay?
Excellent. Very nice, Alan. And it's nice to have the camera looking at it from your perspective, from your side.
Yeah, a wee bit. It takes a bit of getting used to it though, because I'm trying to reach over the top of the camera to tie you. So,
yeah, very good, excellent presentation, excellent.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll send you that £20 you said I was going to give you later.
Okay. I thought it was 25.
Well, yeah, but you were late giving it in, so then I'll just take £5 off.
Okay. I'll give you the discount.
So as you can see, you can use that style on a range of flies. You can use them on anything you tie in with a head hackle, and by setting the length of the hackle in your clip, you can make that as long or as short a hackle as you want, yeah? So, for example, say you tie a cruncher and you come in, and just to finish it off, you want something a little bit different, you could put in a little sparse, you're not needing very much hair at all, probably about a third of what you've got there. Catch them in just in fact, I'll tell you what, actually, rather than try to explain it, I'll just do it, yeah?
Yeah.
Is that all right? So, taking this technique and then using it in slightly different ways, what I'm going to do is I'll pull out where is the sports 14, 12. In a sec, just grab a right hook. There we are. Okay. Here's a slightly heavier wire. Now I'll work a mix of barbed and barbless, guys. Hooks are personal choice. So I'll make no excuses for using barbed hooks because I quite like them, I have to say. Where you're allowed to use them, and obviously if they're not required, then you've got the option to be able to debarb them. Well, a wee tip there then. So if I knew I was going to a fishery that was debarb flies only, then I would tend to do it here like that. So just drop your fly into your vise like that, yeah? If you get it, catch it right, you drop your hook into the vise like so, and then that way, guys, see if you can just see that. There you go. I always find that the best way, because you're using your flat surface of your vise there. There's no ribs or anything like you get with pliers, and I always find that's the best way debarbing hooks if that's what you're going to do, because it makes sure your nice flat surface is flattening the cut of the barb back into where it was, and you set your wire. Also, if you can just see that, it gives you an almost like diamond head finish. It's flat on the top. Okay. Right, enough of that. Let's tie up. I'll just do a cruncher-esque black style nymph, okay? Because I've just got material scattered all around me, so I'm just going to grab what I can get when I can find it. This would probably be the worst prepared for a presentation I've ever been. So, what we're going to do is we'll just cut a thread in here, and for the tail, I'm going to use the Leon. If I can find it. Now, I don't know about you guys, but quite often stillwater flies, my dry flies, everything. My go-to tail material now is Coq de Leon. Probably Pardo colour, if I can get it. And I find it makes the best, the most robust tail, gives you the best colour definition, but also it doesn't, some of them microfibets and that are maybe a wee bit stiff, I feel, and I've actually got a theory that I've had fish turn away when they've come up to mouth the fly, when I've been fishing spent spinners, for example, because I feel that they've probably touched that, the tail fibets, and it's put them off. Right. Just because my time slipped an absolute shambles. So, apologies for this. You know, when I'm doing a demo, and I've done one I've been for coaching teams, and I do one. So here's a presentation, guys. I'm going to do it how not to do it. Yeah, this is, make sure you've got your stuff ready, because if you don't, this is what will happen. And what I'm doing now is exactly that. Yeah? Which is a polite way of me saying, I'm really sorry, guys. I complete after it.
Yeah, but you left in last minute, Alan.
That's all right. Excuses like arseholes, guys. We've all got one. Anyway, here we go. I found some. So bear with me. So there we go. That's what I'm talking about. You see, nice stuff. Cockdillion, beautiful sheen to it. And for me, it's particularly tails. It's the perfect tailing material. Another wee tip here, guys. Right, watch. Now I'm stripping the marabou fluff off the end of it here. Yeah, so that's fair enough because it gets too thick here. But I don't know if you've ever noticed a cockdillion. See, when you're squashing it through with your nails like that and you're stripping that stuff out, you're flattening the stem. Yeah. So once you've got that stem flattened off, what I find is, as you work your way up through there, yeah, and you're peeling off your tails as you go, yeah, keep a hold of that stem. Don't throw it away, because it makes an excellent quill. You can get some really, really interesting quill bodies using that, or even just if you want to use it as a rib. If you use an alternative of a different colour, so say you use an olive thread or a yellow thread with that as a rib across the top of it, makes a really, really striking fake quill body. Yeah.
You can use them for antenna on the sedge as well.
You can, yeah, 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 and they're really tough. So I mean, you're not going to go through a whole cape stripping it off just to get the hair off, like. But if you're ever trying, you're looking something like it would work like a boar bristle, then you can use that. Yeah. So there you go, guys. I've just caught in the tail here. And just take my thread back up. And I'm just going to start to form my taper body, just using thread, okay? Remember, every time you're turning this, you're tightening it up, so just keep twisting it back flat. So you don't, your thread doesn't become too segmented, if you like, too bulky. Yeah. What I'm going to use for this one, I've just got some quill subs braid from Simplify. I'm going to catch this in. So it's just a flat braid, guys. We use this as my body. So then just bring my thread back down to lock that in place, right down to the start of the tail. Now what I like to do, take my thread under the tail, lift it all up, take it in, tighten it up. Couple of turns, that's all you need. And that way, that just sets the tail up slightly. So you see, it's not lying just flat straight at the back. Now, okay, you could be asking, why would you do that in a nymph? As soon as you start to move it, it's going to come, start retrieving it, it's going to come flat again. But it just helps stop it getting caught around the bend of the hook. It's also a good tip. I always do that with my dry flies. So I'm just going to use this flat braid here, and I'll just form a flat body in this fly.
No, funny.
Speak amongst yourselves, guys. Well, nice flat body in this fly. I think we've got here. Cut that, edit that bit out, Derek, okay?
You've just woken Paul up.
No,
I've not had a whiskey yet, that's what's wrong. Yeah. Okay, so there we go. So cockdillion tail, fake peacock still quill body, and I'm going to use a wee spot of low vis UV, drop it onto the top of that body there. That's a Bet Forster UV resin. It's pretty good actually. It's you go through these things and everybody's telling you how great this is and how great that is, and you end up with hundreds of pounds worth of stuff sitting there, and it turns out that the one that costs the least, Betfor from Vineyard, is well, personally I think it's just as good as anybody else. So there we go, just a wee spot on there. We'll just spread it about. I'm just going to hit that with my torch just to set it. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I just thought of this actually. So this is a 1/8 inch braid, and I'm going to catch that in here, and I'm going to use that as a thorax cover. Okay. So for the thorax, I'm just going to drop in, and I'm really, guys, this is not a set pattern. I'm just grabbing materials as they come to me. I'm going to use some of that black peacock dubbing again from Vineyard, and I'll drop that in place there. So a form of thorax, pick this out a wee bit, just to get rough it up, yeah. And I've laid my cover there for later. Now, as I was saying, we want to take our row here, and this time you're not wanting very much at all, yeah. So you take a smaller amount, cut tight to the body, just doing exactly the same as I did already. So a much sparser amount. Not too sparse though. So what am I meaning by that? I mean that you're not just trying to pick out like 4 or 5 fibres, because invariably you're going to lose a few, and if you feel it's too heavy, you can always pick a few out. So I've just come in here. If you can see that there, I mean that's really, I think you're counting about, it's probably about 20 fibres there. Do the same again, just exactly what I do with everything else. Stack them, just to get the tips lined up. Right, pull it out. And then you can see I've got the tips lined up, and any broken fibres you can lift them out the way. Now needing that pliers. And just catch them in for the end. So you can see now, when you compare the two videos, you can see now how that's about a third of the amount of deer hair I had for the Zulu. Okay. Again, just do the same again. Just line your lengths up and see where you want it. And then, as I said with this one, I mean, well, what we'll do here is just by way of contrast, I'm going to bring this down so that they're pretty short. Okay. Now remember, you've got to allow 2 or 3 millimeters coming out the end of your pliers or your grips, because that's what's going to grip into the thread. So allow for that. So that's essentially your entire length almost, because you're going to be pushing these up so that you've not got much in the way of tag ends showing out the end of your thread loop. Flatten the thread, double needle in, split, sticky wax, grips, come in, make sure it's wide open. Now watch with your wax, obviously if you come and touch the thread away down here, that's where you're going to set the loop, so you want to be taking it up as high as you can get it. Grip. Take that out the way. Push this back. And leave yourself. I mean, really, all you're just looking for is just barely 0.5 millimetre if you can do that. Just sandwiched in the thread loop, okay? I'll just spin it a little bit there just to make sure we've got that caught in place. Shorten our thread. Spin the bobbin holder. Twisting it clockwise. This is a Simplify Classic Wax, so clockwise is the direction to go to tighten it up. And then what we're going to do here, just the same again, just winding it forward. And there you can see a very, very sparse hackle set into the head of this nymph. I've just put 2 or 3 locking turns in place there, and now I'll bring my thorax cover forward, just to split that hackle on the top. Just make sure I've got a couple of locking turns there. Lift that out of the way. And worry if you've got an odd fibre sticking at the front, you can fix that soon. Come down with my scissors, nip that out the road, and then just draw everything back and form the head of the fly. There you can see, guys, you're seeing what I meant about a total contrast, if you like, with, again, deer hair, but this time I'm tying it in just as, on a nymph, just as a wee tiny wee, more like legs than a hackle, okay? And we'll just, alternative way to do the varnish, if you want, you can drop your varnish onto your thread. Not too much, just take a little bit of that off. And then you wind that on top of the wet finish you've just done. And then I just drop in another wet finish onto that wet varnish. And then that way, if you come in with your dubbing needle, sometimes if you've got a lot of, if you've got a big hackle in here and you've got a lot of fibres on the way, or you've got a lot of soft dubbing material, your varnish is just going to get drawn into that. So by putting it onto the thread and winding it on there, you're making sure that that varnish is going right there, yeah, as opposed to getting caught and dragged up into the fly. Cut out of the way, and there you go, guys. Don't know how well that's showing up on the camera.
Very good.
That's showing you a complete contrast to the hackle we had before it, but it's exactly the same technique. All right.
Yeah. Nice little midge imitation, that, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it's just like a cruncher style type nymph, yeah. And it wasn't any direct pattern. If anyone wants to name it, then they can have it. I've tied these slightly bigger than that. As I was saying about my tail fly when I was fishing on my teamy wets for short lining, dibble and bob flies across the water. A tail fly probably be slightly bigger than that. That's a size 12, maybe a 10 or even an 8. Usually black or dark olive, and on a heavier wire hook. As you can see, there's nothing there. There's no any palmer tackle or anything there that can trap air that's going to hold that fly up. So when you cast that in, inevitably that's going to cut through the surface, and that's going to act like an anchor to your flies that you're wanting to be working on or in the surface above it. Okay, that's what I meant about an anchor tail fly. There we go, guys. So how's that? All right.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah.
So far, so good. I think I've earned this.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, lovely. That's better. So, what else? What else you think you guys want to see? The other thing I had a request for was something I just showed last week there on my Facebook and Instagram. was the paraloop, okay? And I've noticed a growing trend for paraloops to be called stacked hackles. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that. Stacked hackle and a paraloop hackle are exactly the same. Yeah, so basically what you've got is just a hackle. It's tied in such a way as it's going to be sitting on top of the fly, just exactly like this. This is like Blue Peter. Here's another one I did earlier. So you've got everything sitting on top of the fly, like a parachute hackle, but without the need for your post. You've got a much opportunity to make it a much denser hackle, as you can see here. And you've also got the opportunity, you're pulling this across the top that way, so you don't have any build-up of bulk because you've got a heavy post tied in. I've got my finger in the road, I'm an amateur. You've got a heavy post tied in here. So really, it just gives you an alternative way to tie in a hackle on a fly that's going to be lying and riding low in the water, like so. Okay? You want to see that? You all right?
Please.
Yeah. So when you're looking through your dressings, etc., for these flies, and you're seeing people posting things up on social media, etc., just to let you know, so the stack hackle and a paraloop hackle are one and the same. In fact, years ago, I met him with this guy called Ian Mutter, and he was the one that come out with his book. He was the one I first saw tying with the paraloop style. The book's a few years old now, like, but if you can see the fly that I just tied and the one that's in the photograph here, sitting on top of the vise, are pretty much the same fly. Okay, just an emerging album. Right, hooks. Where are they? Here we go. No, I'm going to tie it as an emerging olive pattern, but you can use that style hackle for anything you like. Makes a good comparadon type done. So I'm just drop my hook into the vise. As you can see, it's a curved light wire emerging hook, grub hook. Emerger hook, sorry, not a grub hook. And then I just catch my thread in.
For a size 12 or a size 10?
That's a 12. That's a 12. Yep. Normally, actually, if I'm tying paraloops for emerging patterns, it's usually if I'm wanting to go down a 16 or an 18, because I feel I do tie deer hair emergers that size as well, and you can get the proportions right. But if you want a more delicate flies, something especially like say a blue wing olive, tying the hackle in this style here allows you to tie in a fly that's a lot more delicate. It's not got the bulk for the deer hair throws off for a start. Yeah. So if you want something, I'm not going to say imitative, more imitative. If you're wanting something more delicate, then this is a good way to do it. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is you just forget all about the hackle just now. Don't have anything to worry about with that at the moment. I'm just going to jump straight into the body of the fly. Yeah. So I'm going to take my thread and touch and turns all the way down around the bend, like so. Flatten my thread still, and then just bring it back up. Now, actually, before I do that, so a couple of things you can do here. If you want a really delicate thin olive body, then you just leave your thread the way it is. If you tighten the thread up, spin it, and tighten it up, and then bring that up and open turns, and that gives you a lovely, very delicate, segmented body in the fly. Yeah, your thread acts as really well as a rib. If you do that, and I do that a lot with my deer hair emergers, I'm pretty sure I showed you that the last time. Take some very fine brush coat varnish. Yeah, just drop a wee drop in there, and then just press it in with your fingers and leave it. And that would just it just helps that fly to last just that a little bit longer. Trout's teeth are sharp, and invariably, if you've only got a single runny thread in the body, then it's not going to take much to break it. Yeah. So what I've done here is I've just brought this thread back up, because this time what I'm going to do is take some very fine, super fine dubbing, and I'm going to dub a body in. This is a slight alternative. So what I've got here is, you've seen some super fine, and I'm just going to be picking out some pale olive. In fact, that's all pale, pick out some blue wing olive. Now this is more like Antron, this dubbing. It's not a natural dub. So I've just got a pinch of that there, and I'm just going to form a dubbing rope just by spreading it out. Make sure I've got it even along the thread, and I've just done it tight, one direction there, just to make sure that I've formed. It's tucked into the thread, and it's dubbed on. Then you guys call it a dubbing noodle. I've heard of that. A lot of guys have started calling it that. I'd never heard that before until just this.
Yeah, that's right, Alan. A lot of people call it a dubbing noodle.
Yeah, I always called it a dubbing rope. Like, okay. Each to their own. So, what I'm going to do now is just make sure, in almost twists and turns, a nice sparse body. I'm just taking this down right to the base of the thread. Yeah, now I've probably got a wee bit too much on here, guys, so I'm just going to pull that off. And what I'm going to do now is, that technique I was telling you earlier, I'm just going to clockwise direction, tighten that thread right up. And I'm just going to use that thread, come back up through and grab the fly. And then just, you don't need any Velcro or nothing for this, guys. You just take your fingers just to roughen that up there. That's me set the body of the fly is okay. Now, when I'm playing paraloops, I use a gallows tool. When I'm tying parachute flies, I use a gallows tool as well. Some guys don't like it, some guys scoff at it. Whatever you want, I like it. I'm tying it, so I use it. Okay. Now, a lot of guys will probably tie in here something for a post. Yeah. The thing is, what I found with that is that if you tie in any other material here, so for example, here's a bit floating poly yarn. If you tie it, and see how thick that is. Yeah. Remember I was saying earlier about the bulk that you're going to get. Yeah, you can go for something slightly thinner, but you can see how much bulk that then creates before you've even started to tie that in. So I've stopped doing that. What I do is I'll take my thread and form exactly the same as what it would be if you were forming a dubbing loop. Yeah. So I've just caught that onto the. In fact, if I pull that down, in a second, if I catch this in, you'll see it. So my gallows tool, I'll just drop it down. So there you go. You see the hook now. Yeah. So it's on a spring. It's on a spring, and we've got a wee hook there. If I just twist it, you'll see it. Yeah. So I'm just going to lift this back up the way, just so I've got enough room to work with properly. So there you go. I've just formed exactly the same as if you were going to be tying a dubbing loop. Yeah. I'm just going to close the loop on my thread a few turns. Now there's a wee bit of dubbing that was left stuck in there. Don't worry, guys, no part of the dressing. I'm just tidying the thing up a bit. So there you go. See, now I'm using the thread itself. It's doubled it up, if you like, and I'm using that as the post. Yeah, and that will keep it nice and fine. Now, I need a grizzle hackle or furnace cock, anything like that. What have we got here? there's a nice iron blue. So you prep your hackle, it's exactly the same as you would do with a parachute. Make sure you're going for a nice thin part of the stem. There we go. So I've cleaned off some fibres on either side, and that's me. I'm just going to catch my hackle in right here. It's exactly the same. Just make sure I've caught it in properly. Yeah. Trim the stem at the root. Now, before I do anything else, in fact, actually, before I tied in the hackle, I should have done this. I'm just going to take a wee drop of UV resin, okay? I mean, that's it. I mean, that's like nothing at all. I'm just dropping that on there, and I'm just going to run that in that little bit of thread there. I'm just squashing my fingers to take the excess off, and I'm just going to use that, set it there. Now, all that's done there is actually stiffened that bit of thread up so that it's giving you something a bit more robust, but still keeping the finesse of tying on the thread. All right, so don't do the thorax or anything else. What we're going to do now is we're going to take our hackle, we're going to wind it round. The thing you've got to watch is, now remember, you're wanting this hackle here to finish at the back of the eye of the hook here. So what you don't want is to take this up too high so that it's going to be sticking out the front. So the way I do it is I generally just watch the amount I've got, take it up as high as I want it to begin with. So that's probably enough. And then just bring that back down through your hackle that you've done. And then I throw in a few extra turns at the base. Now, the reason I didn't tie the thorax in, as you would do with probably would have done with a parachute, is that I'm now going to take the hackle and pull it back, making sure I've crossed over the top of the wire of the hook, and then I'm just going to lock that in place, like so, yeah, and come in with my scissors, and I'm just going to cut that excess hackle out the way. Well, I'm not going to cut it, I'm just going to draw it over the scissors. And then you see, what I've done is I've left this area nice and tidy, ready for the thorax, but what it means is some guys, they'll tie this in, they'll have the thorax done, they'll tie this in, and then bring it forward and catch it in place behind here. But what that does is it leaves fibre sticking over the front of the eye of the hook, and they just get in the road. Yeah, they look messy and just spoil the appearance of the fly, I think. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to drop in a little bit dubbing here. Again, I'm using the peacock dub. I'm just going to drop that in here. You can see actually one or two hackle fibres sticking out the front. And just form the thorax. But before I just finish that off, I'm just going to trim them out the way. Just to keep it clean at the back of the eye of the hook, that's all. All right, guys, so that's me. I've got my post ready to go, and I've now put my thorax in. And what you do is unhook off your gallows tool, draw the thread forward, pulling all your fibres back out the way because you don't want to get them caught in. Catch in behind the eye of the hook, just 1, 2. Now hold the thread and then just make sure you've got that pulled in really tight, and then just open a real tight couple of lock and turns, and that should tie that off in place. And then we can just come in with our scissors, draw it across that thread and cut out of the way, and that's us taking the post out. So yeah, you see there, guys, there's absolutely no bulk at all. I'll just finish this fly off, just a few turns at the head there, just to form a head. 1, 2, 3. Now that's a good example of putting the varnish onto the thread, because there's a lot of soft material here. Okay, so as I said before, you can come in with your dubbing needle to varnish your head of your fly if you want. You probably get caught in this hackle. So what I like to do, as I've already said, just take a tiny little drop, almost a dry brush if you like. Just touch the thread there with the varnish. Wind that on top of the whip finish you've already done, like so. And then I just drop in another couple of locking turns on top of that wet varnish there. And that's me finished that fly off. No danger of varnish getting caught in the material. And then the last job, you just draw the hackle forward, just because you've pushed it all back just to get your thread and your thorax in place. So if you just work your hackle forward like so, and then that's you tied in a paraloop hackle. How's that, guys? All right?
Very good.
Yes.
Now, as I said, that technique, you can tie that on with bigger hackles on bigger flies. You can tie it on straight flies, makes a good done. You can actually, when you draw that forward, you can catch a post in there. So you can catch in just a little bit of coloured floss just here. When you pull that forward, if you don't put the floss around the body, if you just put the floss around there, around your the end of your thread there, your post, and then that way it'll get trapped down when you draw it forward, and then you leave yourself a wee marker post if you feel if that's what you want. You need it, yeah.
Alan,
Great on the soft water, great in flat water, flats, areas where you would probably switch to CDC quite a bit, and I would tend to use a paraloop in that respect, because it's a lot more robust than Caldicanam, I find. And there you go, guys. So that's just a nice, easy paraloop immersion olive. Okay.
Alan, can I ask, does this sit lower in the water than a clinker handle?
Yes. So yes, this is where the name of stacked hackle comes, because then you've got all this hackle here is above, everything's above the wire of the hook. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
So when you put your floating, so I'm still floating. The way I actually treat these flies is I would grip my fingers, cover all the hackle up like this, exactly the same as I do with DHE. I would wet this with saliva, then grip it like that, bring my floating tin, just drop a wee drop in the back of onto the hackle there, or in the case of deer hair, the same idea. Just drop it into there and then rub it right through the wing and the top of the thorax. So you're not allowing any of your gel to get caught up into the body of the fly. So when you fish that, you cast it, and that's immediately going to cut through the surface of the film, and it's going to sit like this, really low in the water. Yeah. So essentially, you're just seeing that tuft of hackle on the top, like, you know. And
Thank you.
Yeah, great. It's an alternative to, I don't know if you remember, I've tied a fly called the Dirty Duster, a Bob White pattern, where essentially you're just tying your hackle in conventionally, and then cutting it underneath, so you get a 3/4 round comparadon hackle. Yeah, it's an alternative to that, guys. Tying it in the paraloop. What benefit you get with using the paraloop to the Dirty Duster is because you're not trimming the hackle underneath. You didn't lose any bulk to the hackle itself. Yeah, but it's still pretty fine. But I mean, if you're imagining you're taking a fine hackle like that and then probably cutting a third of it out, then you're kind of losing the effect, really, aren't you? Yeah. So there you go, guys. Simple as that.
Perfect for flat water.
Excellent for flat water. Yeah. Very, very good. Up here they call them sippers, so the trout are just sipping away. Great for that. And as I said, it's really delicate still, but it's more robust than working CDC. So when you get a fish on this, you bring it in. Really, all I tend to do is just false cast it again a few times and then just go straight on to the next one. Yeah. So I don't have to faff about by drying it and redressing it or anything like that. Yeah. So if you're especially if you're on a short burst hatch, then you've not really got a lot of time to fart about. So this can help you cover more fish. You maybe get another couple of fish in the session that you would have not normally have got. Yeah. So guys, that's about it. I mean, just a short session, but at least that way I've let you see the two distinct techniques that that had been asked to show, and I hope it's been enjoyable. And I'm sorry I was late coming in, but circumstances dictated it.
Very
Traffic on-
informative, Alan.
No, thanks, guys, and really happy. Any questions you've got, I'm happy to answer, and help with anything that you might want to ask. What I would say though, a couple of things. Actually, a quick tip, right? So if you're tying in these things, yeah. So you're basically, essentially, you've tied a hackle fly, but the hackle's on the top, yeah. There's no post, like in a parachute, sitting in here to get in the way of that, yeah. If you're stuck, guys, see if it's really windy day, etc. This makes a really good spider pattern. Although you're not getting the same kick that you would get for a normal spider. But don't be shy in taking some of your dry flies like that and fishing them in an unorthodox manner. Sinking them and swinging them past fish. Because, yeah, whenever I've had a lot of trout that have either risen below me, or when you've been fished through a pool and you just go back, you fished up a pool and then you just want to go back through it again quickly. Just by taking this here, what I would do then is I completely wet the fly with saliva and then cast it hard and give it a sharp pull so the fly will cut through the surface, and I'll just use exactly the same fly as a spider without having the need to sit and change over flies, especially if you're throwing at a fish that's just popped up below you. You don't have the time to play about with it, then just try those unorthodox styles, and using this, as I said, using a hackle there as opposed to deer here. I find that working as a spider like that works a lot better. It's almost like a olive in the act of emerging, if you like. Just that, maybe say, yeah, quarter of an inch, half an inch below the surface. That can be it can be quite devastating. It can not work as well. Like sometimes the fish just look at you, but it's just a wee handy tip to try. Yeah.
And I've never.
If you want a nice delicate hopper, you would just, prior to tying the hackle in, you would just throw in your hopper legs just at the back of the hackle right there. Yeah. You can imagine you would get a nice hopper style fly, especially a static dry if you're using that in still water. And there you go. You can imagine that with the legs tied in just behind it. Yeah. Tied in black, make a decent hawthorn. There you go. Really, just a simple idea, really. How's that then?
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
I'm going to enjoy my second half of my dram. So anybody been out yet? Have anybody hadn't been out and got a cast? Anybody been successful?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Up here it's been horrendous weather. Rivers have been blown out. I've never known a spring like it, to be honest with you. So we're just starting to get a bit of settled weather now. So
Yeah,
hopefully
down southwest, is that the same?
Mm.
The last 3 days have been a horrendous cold wind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed in the forecast here now we've got a bit high, going to dominate for the next week or so. So we've got a bit of northerlies up here, but the northeast of Scotland near Aberdeen, so I'm used to it being windy. But hopefully after that it settles enough. Yeah, you can still fish nymphs and wets, etc. But dries are my passion, so I always prefer to stick out with dries for probably way longer than I should do. Just for that hope of seeing a fish taking fly off the surface. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see whether more salmon come in this year because it's been so late.
Well, now you say that, several things. So I fish for salmons as well, and I'm on the banks of the River Spey, I'm about 10 minutes from the mouth of the Spey where I live, and I fish the mouth section for sea trout, and through the summer time we want it to be rain. We want a nice low water which holds the salmon and stops them running the river, and they're coming in off the tide into our section, because it's the last essentially mile and 3/4 of the river that the club I'm in fishing. That said, though, you also go that bit further up. This year we have had, I think now they're on 5 salmons springers of the smallest one of them has been 19, and 4 of them have been over 20. I think 26 is the biggest, is the heaviest one that they've had this season so far, which is interesting enough in that, I mean, per rod hours pressure in the water, then the odds are still against you catching a fish, but you can go, at the moment anyway, with the fish that's in the Spey, you can go with the hope that, knowing that there's fish there, that you have a chance.
Yeah, I know down here, you know, this type of summers and the dry spring summers we've had, the fish are in out earlier before you can start fishing for them, and the same at the other end. So
Well,
this year it'll go back a bit more like it used to be.
Well, up here, you could say that. I mean, obviously, you could. I mean, arguably, you would say you're going to have more chance of success for salmons at the back end of the season, which is fine, yeah, because obviously things have been building up all summertime, so there's a bigger number there, yeah. But there's also a bigger number of coloured fish. If so having that beautiful steely sheen to them, still salmon though. So everybody seems to be heading towards back end fishing now, if you've noticed.
Yeah, ours don't come in till after the season's gone.
Oh, okay.
It's still too warm. The water's too warm down here in the summer, so it's just made the salmon come in, and you'll see them coming in, moving end of November, December.
Right. Interesting that, because I see that here. If I'm down walking the dog down the beach, you'll see salmon out of season. The Spey finishes early. It finishes in the 30th of September, which is a shame, because when you're down there, you're definitely seeing fish still coming in after that.
I think the water's got to be a certain cold temperature to bring them in. And you know, if you're having warm years, the rivers are a little bit warm, so it doesn't turn them on.
No, yeah. It's also going to be a cooler temperature to get them active.
Mm.
So they'll lie dogged if it's too warm. And then you've got the danger if you're hitting 18 degrees and above. Rivers should actually shut, I feel. Once we hit a steady temperature, water temperature at 18 degrees upwards, these fish, the chances of them surviving is drastically reduced if you've hooked it and played it out. So really, we should just be saying, right, guys, we need to rest it. It's a hard thing to do when you've been off the river all winter time, and then.
Well, I must admit, we've been down here. I used to get spring fishing first 2 months, and then it's almost gone. I'm on to sea fishing now because it's too warm. For big lakes. The sea is very much shorter.
Weather dependent, of course.
Yeah.
Chris, we've had all our rain in the last month, but wet summers are obviously better. But you've got cooler, oxygenated water, and the fish are fresher. But yeah, you're right. We're seeing that up here. We're definitely seeing an increase in marine temperature, and it's just having an effect. It's not been studied enough. I mean, you could sit here and pick out flipping 10 different reasons as to why salmon are.
Yeah, it's still overfished. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, and they're bait fish. They're feeding fish. Sand eels, for example, not just them, but sand eels is probably the easiest, best example. They've been hammered stupid. What we see there. Scandinavian boats being pissed off because they can't come into the Dogger Bank and fish for sand eels. Guys, you can't keep taking all. You have to have a time when you've got to give it a rest. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And I think that's half the problem. We got these birds coming inland because they haven't got the food they had out in the sea originally.
That's right. Yeah. No, I'm not I'm not a great 100% believer in seals being a decimation of salmon stocks. Some seals, yes, the ones that specialise in feeding in the river and feeding in the fish that